It's live early. So, hello, Fat Tuesday at 7. We know that there's folks that are joining on for the next several minutes. So there'll be people that are joining on. So we're going to sit back for a few minutes. I'm pretty punctual on time, so I like to start, certainly get on before 7 o'clock. So how are you guys doing? Are you, so Frank, how did you celebrate Fat Tuesday?
I like to come down to programs that my relatives do.
Did you eat any? We were talking. How do you pronounce it? Punchkis? Punchki?
I think so.
Have you ever eaten any of those sweet things? Those donut type things?
I never have.
You never have?
No.
Oh, we might have to bring one down and
watch me eat it.
Yeah, eat one on. I'm going to ask you a question while you're eating this powdered sugared donut, and don't breathe in or breathe out while you're eating it. So for those folks who are watching, the intention behind these Tuesday at 7 live streams is to be interactive. And so as folks join, we encourage you to share this video out. You can share it out to your friends list. You can hit the share button, which I think is in the bottom left-hand corner. Bottom right-hand corner. Beth is motioning. Bottom right-hand corner, if you hit the share button, you could share it to a select group. You can say, I want to send it to Chaff's Cast. You could send it to 5 people that you want on your friends list, or you could just share it to your friends list. So it allows folks to be intentional about the sharing. Sometimes if folks are creative, artistic, in the theater, into a different creative avenues, sometimes they'll share it to specific people. So Beth, I think that you shared it out to Chaff's Cast. So we're gonna talk about a couple of these groups and a couple. And did you share it out to Frank's list as well?
Yeah, I hope I saved it on your news feed and a bunch of groups.
I think both of the people there will enjoy it.
All right, so I'll, you know what we're going to do is, let's start with our giveaway. No, let's not start with a giveaway. No, I'm going to talk about a few things here. If you guys have looked back at the catalog of interviewees over the past, you may remember Ted Sikora. He's the artist and the writer of Tap Dance Killer and Apama. He's a director. His film is going to be on The Mummy and the Monkey in a few weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Ted Sikora is also going to be at WizardCon in Cleveland on March 6th through the 8th. And so if there's folks that are into kind of the makeup, the comics, the character building, the cosplay, a lot of that's going to be happening at WizardCon in Cleveland. Ted will also be teaching 2 comic book classes at Kids Comic Con on February 29th. That's coming this weekend. To connect, if you're into local arts, if you're into graphic novels, comics, check out Ted at www.herotomorrow.com. Neil Zaza, who was an interview of ours way back last, what was that? August? September? I forget. He's starting his U.S. tour this Friday, and there's some news that One Dark Night is going to get a little bit of a expansion this year, so we're not quite sure what that means. But check out Neil, and Instagram is where a lot of stuff is going on with Neil, at Neil, Neil _ Zaza, Z-A-Z-A, at Neil _ Zaza out there on Instagram. And then last but not least, Midnight Syndicate at Douglas. And I think I'm going this Friday the 28th, they're playing at Slim and Chubby's in Strongsville. It's not Midnight Syndicate, it's Vinyl Arcade, and that is a great atmosphere. So Vinyl Arcade, which is Ed Douglas and a number of talented musicians are going to play at the Vinyl Arcade this Friday. And I think I'm going. I'll share that out too, because that's going to be a great evening. They play 70s and 80s, and they do show tunes and music, and it's a fun time. So if you guys like Minute Syndicate, you guys are gonna get a hoot over the Vinyl Arcade. So we're gonna hang out this Friday night.
A hoot?
A hoot? Beth, are you gonna go as well? Do you think?
I'm assuming so.
Assuming so. All right.
Are you gonna take me?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna take you.
Okay.
And then let's give away. So last week we interviewed Carrie Esser. She's a body painter, and she's an entrepreneur graduate from Kent State, and she's an artist and a model and does all kinds of creative things. And we're giving away for everybody who shared her video a signed photograph. And whoever wins this, I would hold on to this, because I think at some point this thing's going to probably be worth some money because it's signed, and this is early Carrie Esser. I know that she talked about this look and from Face Awards, I think, last year. So there's a timestamp on here as well, which I think makes it valuable. Not to mention, it's also autographed by Carrie. So we're going to send this out. But the winner, Frank, are you going to...
I'll do
pick
that.
the winner, but at the same time, you're electing a whole bunch of losers, because anybody you don't pick is a big loser.
Can I check
Very
them first, or
optimistic.
do I have to just pick one?
They're stuck together, so you gotta...
Hi, Jessica.
Jessica's here? Hey, Jess.
We have Stephen Kroll.
Oh, Steve.
Mindy.
Good to see you. You having trouble there?
This is very complicated.
That's because he uses sticky.
I use sticky notes, so I fold them down.
Roger Miller.
Roger Miller. that is a winner. Deb Sherrill. Deb Sherrill. So you, and I don't know how to get a hold of you, Deb. You are the winner of the Carrie Esser signed photograph. And Deb, I know that you share just about every week, and we thank you for that. And I know that you've been encouraging to the creative community at Tuesday at 7, so we appreciate that.
And I selected you, Dan.
Yeah.
Out of all the names in the hat. Remember that.
Makes it even more special.
Yes.
You know, Deb Sherrill was actually a guest. I don't say actually, she is a guest, and she does all kinds of great things. She runs the Artist Way group out in Medina, and she also is a paint pourer. And so she does a lot of, I got some great work by her, but not only is she an artist herself, but she's really supportive of the creative community. So we're glad you won. Yeah.
I think I got powdered sugar on your phone.
Oh, no.
From my punchki.
Yeah, Fat Tuesday. Hope you guys have a good day and you're eating your sweets and preparing for this lentil season. But, Frank,
it's not the
is it
lentil, that's a bean. It's a lentin.
Lentin.
Yeah.
Lentin.
I knew what he was saying.
Yeah. Did you guys get that out there? Everybody give a thumbs up for lentil.
Yes. I like lentils too. It just made me giggle, that's all.
All right, so that's why I mentioned not multitask. Just stay focused. So Vinyl Arcade is playing this weekend, but back when we interviewed Ed Douglas, they had given us a whole bunch of CDs. But what we're gonna do is everybody out there, Frank, I'm gonna ask you a question, and you have to write down the answer on a sticky note, and then everybody there can go ahead and guess the answer. And if you happen to be the first person who guesses correctly, and then we're going to get you this CD. But the question is, so you guys get the rules out there. The first person who guesses correctly, and we're not going to reveal the answer to the end, so we're going to ask a few times. How many shows over the years have you either directed, produced, or been a part of? Over the years, how many shows? And you might say, it could be 3 or 4. Whatever your answer is what they've got to try to match.
Pressure.
So
Okay, and I'm supposed to be accurate with this.
yeah, you're trying to be
Over 50 years, I have to remember how many shows I've done.
Exactly.
I can do that.
Exactly. So over 50 or so. you're giving. That's like telling people about how many jelly beans are in the jar. So
It's not even close, right?
it's okay. So you've been involved in theater for over 50 years, and you're gonna guess how many shows that you've been a part of. Now, out there in Tuesday 7 land, just write the number, hit the comment.
Mindy says 483.
483.
Did she guess it?
You can't.
Oh.
Don't tell.
He's got to write the answer down.
No
Frank,
cheating.
didn't you teach for a while?
I did.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Cover your answers.
Yeah, cover your answers. We're gonna announce it. Make sure I remember to announce this winner at the end. Okay.
Give it to me and I'll.
Give or take.
That'll remind me.
Whoa. All right. So, for those folks who have joined, what we're going to do is we're going to give away this the CD at the end. And for those folks who, the first person who guesses the correct one, and maybe like one or two guesses a person. One or two guesses a person. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because at one point you'll get to it. But the first one who guesses the correct number of shows that you've been involved with since the very beginning will win that CD. And then we'll reveal the number at the end. Does that sound fair?
That sounds exciting.
All right. I always ask a unexpected question. I think it's unexpected.
Here we go.
To start off the interview. And obviously Frank's like, whoa, where's this one going? And
There we go.
those who know Frank probably are enjoying his
This is called
being on the hot
payback.
seat. So you're Hungarian, I understand, right?
Right.
And a bit of Hungarian, right? Like mostly Hungarian?
100%.
100% Hungarian. And so there's a phrase that young Hungarians sometimes hear, and the phrase could be "Yo for you" or "Rus for you." And so young Hungarians will often hear "Yo for you" or "Rus for you." And what of those two phrases do you recognize those phrases?
The one I recognize is Memsabud.
Oh, what's an Emsbud?
Don't do that. Or say that. Either way, it works.
Yeah.
Don't.
So I recall hearing "Yo for you," which is "good boy" or "good boys," and "Rus for you," if I remember, was the phrase that I think my older brother Joe heard quite a bit, and which is "bad boys." But at any rate, so with that, what I'd like to do, and what I'd like the audience to do, is to realize this is interactive. So throw out your comments and questions, and we'll get to those throughout this interview. But take us back to the beginnings of your creativity, and there that may have been pre-theater days. And if it's so, kind of take us back there and talk about some of those early creative days.
Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
When I was a very young child, in the crib, in fact, in diapers, back then cloth diapers, one day I became very creative with something that had evidently fallen out of the diapers. My mother said I was so specific. All the bars on the crib were coated in the walls as far as I could reach.
Finger painting.
More or less. That's my first.
That's your first artwork, right?
First artwork into creativity. Yes.
And from there, it's been downhill, or
Oh, so many comments come to mind. Well, I like to think things got better.
Yeah.
But I remember what got me into a creative idea was when I was just a young kid. My father and mom took me to Goodyear Theater. And I'd never seen a show before. And we sat up in the balcony, and they did a musical. I remember sitting, leaning against the balcony, watching, thinking, oh my God, people can actually do this. And ever since then, I had, you know, not dreams of doing that, but maybe, and how do they do it? And it just really got me excited about theater and drama and that. And then I kind of gravitated, bumping here and there in the creative area over the years, and slipped into that. But I think if they hadn't taken me, I don't know. You know, but it just had a great effect on me.
So that was the ignition,
that was the spark.
right? The spark.
Yes.
And give us a, how old were you ish? Single digits? 9, 10, 11?
Probably, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, you remember even back to then kind of that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I think it might have been South Pacific. I can't remember that specifically, but I remember they were singing and dancing and lights and colors. And that was just so inspiring. It was just fantastic. I loved it. Didn't know how they did it, but I loved it.
You loved it. So, high school, college, did you participate in theater? And you know, maybe before I go there, probably the majority, would you say that it'd be correct to say the majority of your creative energy was spent in the theater, directing, producing, participating, or was there other things that?
Well, back then they didn't have any theater programs in schools, in high schools. So every now and then a teacher would do a show and I would try to get into that. And I was more into the music. They had a music program where a person would come into your school every week, and I learned violin from that. And I worked from violin to, then years later, to cello and to trombone. And that was it. I developed an appreciation and enjoyment of music doing that. And I found out that a lot of people in our family were musical. Yeah. My dad played in a church band, but then when I got out of high school, then I went to college, and I told my parents that when I was going to college, you know, what do you want to be, Frank? And so I thought maybe something in the theater, and then later I regained consciousness and realized I should probably direct my efforts to another area. So I did a couple of shows in college, but not much. And then I got into high school or to teaching, and when a lady did a show that they did, and I was first or second year teacher, and they put it on. We had a stage in the gym, and all the kids went in, and they were putting a show on for the school. And the kids enjoyed throwing coins at them, and you couldn't hear well. And then that teacher left, and I thought, I could do that good. So I gave it a try, and then that set me off on what probably was the joy of my life in the arts, is doing plays and musicals and that.
Yeah. Were you a high school teacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you and I'm assuming you were a drama teacher, but that's an assumption. What other subjects?
Well, they didn't have, even then they didn't have drama teachers.
Okay.
Coaches, but no drama teachers. But I did it because I liked to do it, because I loved it. And then years later, they got into, they didn't even want drama teachers. They were going to pay a stipend if you did plays after school. And then we worked into that. But I just, it was fun. Did it.
Yeah.
Did it on stage.
What was, talk about those those first few years of putting on productions, and kind of what the challenges were, because that was in 2020. That was a few decades earlier than that, and it was a different time and different equipment and different lights and different things. Talk about those first.
Yeah, Roger. How far back can we make this sound?
Yeah, we're gonna. I mean, we're back to I mean, stone tablets and
pretty close.
Torches for lights, right?
Yeah. Well, one time we did, kind of. We were doing a show and the lights went off in the whole city.
Ooh.
And the parents ran home and brought in lanterns and things, and that show was going on. whatever's going on. Then the fire department said you're not allowed to have fire in the theater like that. But they brought in some of the big lights that they had and set them up and ran the cables in from the fire engines, and we did that show. But fortunately, my early efforts in theater, I didn't go to prison because I wasn't aware of all of the procedures you had to go through to spend school money. So everything I needed, I just went out and charged to the school. Well, you have to have things approved by the Board of Education, and you have to turn in at the beginning of the year how much you're planning on spending, and it has to be. I just charged it. And fortunately, we made enough money to pay the bills. I don't know what would have happened. Then when they found out I was doing that several years later, we had to become more orthodox. And that. But we never got any money from the school system to do a show. We just got lucky.
Yeah.
We made money on the shows, and we just kept making it, and that worked out.
Before we all started, you were talking about some of the equipment, the lights, and some of the old and
Oh yeah, yeah. The school had a light board in the back on a side wall, and it's in the gym, but this wasn't part of it. And it was the old fashioned where you had the rheostats and you pulled the lever up and down. And we had 2 spotlights. Now the gym had the bleachers in it for the basketball games. And we would carry these big handheld, spotlights on stands up to the top of the bleachers and kind of put some wood there and set them up. We're lucky. We never dropped one. But they had the bulbs in it that were about that big around and about that big. And they would get burning hot. And I remember I always had to tell the spotlight operators that if the spotlight ever went out, don't reach in to touch the bulb because their hand would have melted to it. And now at Goodyear Theater, which was a big time in Akron, they had the old carbon arcing spotlights. And they would make a loud bang when they went on. After that, they were okay, but they would do that. Now you have little bulbs and spotlights and crystal, and it was nice. But we made do with everything, and it was fun. It was a real creative process, and the young people I worked with got to enjoy and learn all kind of things. Painting. When I finally got a theater class, I would have to talk to the parents and the kids about taking my class. And one of the things I always told them was, any place you go in the country, there's going to be a little theater nearby. And they're always looking for somebody to be in shows, somebody to paint the sets, to sell tickets, to be ushers. There's always a home for you someplace. After the athletes of the high school days have their knee replacements and all that, you can still do shows. And we sold a lot of people got involved with that because, theater, you could, public speaking, whether it's a PTA or where you work, you have that confidence built up. You stood in front of hundreds of people. You could certainly do this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Tell us about recruiting. So this is, let's talk about students,
Okay.
Because I'm sure there's multiple answers, and we'll go wherever you want to go with that as well. But recruiting your cast or tryouts, whether that's how you did in the first handful of years that you were producing shows or late, like how does that work? What do you look for, and talk us through that.
That's always interesting for high school kids, even for a lot of adults, to audition. There's a chance that you won't get picked. Mm-hmm. So you really have to put a lot of yourself out there. Now, I don't believe in, I call it theater geeks. A theater geek are people, the only thing they do is theater. I had people in my shows from every part of the student body. whether they were cheerleaders or athletes or the National Honor Society or kids that didn't have any place to go. They talk about bullying and children who are lonely and that. We had a place for them in the theater. We expected them to work. We didn't do junk. And we would have our auditions and you try it out. And I looked for the cast, for the parts that we had and how do they do it. And everybody could learn. Everybody could get better. And that's what we tried to do. And it worked out well. I think one of the reasons we would have 50, 80 kids try out for smaller plays or some smaller musicals, but it was the thing to do. We put on good shows. We put on shows that the people in our community would enjoy. First, we would put signs out in yards, and then we didn't even have to do that. They'd put one sign in the center of the city, and the parents came, and then after their kids graduated, the parents kept coming, the kids kept coming, so we usually had a full house for every show. Casting's fun. People have hurt feelings, but that's the way life is.
Yeah.
We tried to cast what the script called for. In some musicals, you could always, some of the larger ones, you'd always had room for people to be trees and shrubs and townspeople, but we never cast too many. We tried to keep it, go along with the script. And sometimes, people would everybody wanted to be the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, when we'd have our first meeting, I would often say, particularly with the young ladies, that I'm sure you all imagine yourself to be the lead girl, the lead female in the show. I hope you've had enough time to get over it that you didn't get that part. And then we'd try to explain how everybody's important.
Right.
Every show. If the lead person didn't have anybody to talk to, it just didn't work. So, and it worked. Every now and then somebody would quit because they didn't get the lead, but that's okay.
Yeah. You kept going. I imagine there's quite a few people who are signing on. For those people who are sharing, thank you. We'll pause here in a moment if there's any questions come up. But while we're going to go to maybe some comments and some questions, Frank wrote down on a sticky note the number of shows that you've participated, directed, produced over the years, and that sticky note is over there. And before we end our interview tonight, we're going to pull that out, and anybody who's guessed it exactly, the first person who guessed it exactly will win a Midnight Syndicate CD. And if we don't have somebody who gets it exactly, the person who's closest but under will give that CD away too. So go ahead and throw out one or two guesses per person out there. And Beth, have you seen any questions come up for Frank? Comments?
Lots of comments about how fabulous he is.
Frank, you are pretty fabulous.
You are pretty fabulous. While I'm looking, well, hang on one second. Where'd it go? Danielle Shook says, Chaff has always encouraged me in high school and in college, and still to this day. He's a wonderful teacher and friend. Abby Farriott, no matter what role you have, Chaff always makes sure you feel like you are part of something great. Sorry, a bunch of people are talking to each other too, so I'm having to scroll through those comments, which is fabulous. I love that
we
they're
absolutely
doing that.
love the fact that you guys are connecting here at this live stream at Tues 87.
Yeah, people are saying, "How dare you put them on a live mic?"
When you were starting out, and it was just, this is fabulous. I know I want to do this. I think I can do this. Once you got started, and then you had to start doing auditions and following school protocols, did you take certification in it in classes, or did you just read some books and then say, I am Chaff and I'll just figure this out and make it work, as far as auditioning process or directing students versus adults, theater 101?
Yes.
Yes. All the above.
I did it all. What I learned the most how I learned the most was doing it. I was fortunate. I lived in a community that appreciated the arts and appreciated theater. I had, for the most part, administrators who thought it was a great, the way we got drama classes in the school was an interesting story, I could tell, because they didn't have them. And I had a principal that said, that sounds great. Give it a try. And then my life became so much brighter and happier. I taught the perfect classes for directing shows, history and psychology. I think that's a good background to have.
Absolutely.
And then when I could get, but few people came to my government class saying, oh, we're going to learn American Government Day. I can't wait. That didn't happen. But in theater class, everybody could see their name in lights as they came in the door. And it was fun.
There's got to be a few things that, and probably many things, because you've been involved in theater for many years.
Yeah.
And but during those years, there's got to be some of those times where you're like, looking back, there's this 1, 2, 3 moments that step out, whether it was a challenge that you overcame or it was a particular show that was impactful to you, or an audience that was different.
Let me tell you a story about one of the things that I will never forget. I was doing a show called Funky Winkerbean's Homecoming. It's written by the author of Funky Winkerbean in the paper, the comic strip. And I had a boy try out for my class who was in special disciplinary classes in the school, and he had one teacher that was with him, and he auditioned. I won't tell you his name, but he called himself a name that was very unflattering, just one word. He went by that. He wore a hoodie, and you couldn't see his face, and he was huge. He was just, I don't know, I can't think of a man that I've known that could have fought with him and won. He was just a huge boy. And he would walk down the halls with the hoodie on and not say anything. He tried out. He came to try out for Funky Winkerbean's Homecoming. And in the show, they had the bad boy in the sitting, so I gave him a part. The next day, the special teacher that was with him all the time said I would probably be killed. And other teachers said the same thing. You don't know what you... I didn't know better. So he got a part in the show, and he got that part. And he came to rehearsals, and then he quit coming. And I'd see him in the hall and say, I'm going to call him Biff. Biff, I haven't seen you at rehearsal. Well, I lost my voice, and I can't. Okay, see him a little later, the next day, a couple of days. Biff, we need you. How's your voice coming? Drink some tea. And then he came back in the show. He did it. One rehearsal, everybody was talking and I was doing something. He said, now, let's get quiet. Let me have your attention. And nobody got quiet. And he stepped out in the middle. This is when we were doing it in the gym with the theater. He stepped out and said, you be quiet when Mr. Chaff talking. It was instant silence. I think cars stopped driving outside the building. And we went on. He completed the show. Maybe the first thing he's really completed and was a success at. Would not go out for a curtain call. Would not go to the cast party. But he did the show. And I found out later that sometimes his mother was not a very nice lady, and he would be out all night in the streets. And once she tried to kill him, and he had to jump out the second floor window. She had a knife and was going to stab him, and he jumped up. And I like to think that, hopefully he went on to a better life, but just to go through the program, I'm just impressed with that. I'm pleased with it. That was
a memorable thing.
Very much so, yes.
Well, I know that over the years, because I've heard it, and there's people here who are watching live and who will watch here later too, that you made quite an impression in many lives. Certainly of your students, but you've done more than just high school theater or school theater. You've done other projects, right? Talk
Yes.
about some of that and maybe how that bridge occurred from high school to other shows.
Well, in high school, and when you're thinking of your number, I was doing 3 shows a year, and then I got a call. Goodyear Theater, back in the day, was a very renowned theater in Akron, and it was very professionally built. It had a huge scene building shop under it, and everything. They have professional spotlight men come in and lighting to come in for the shows. And they asked if I would do, they wanted to get somebody to do Godspell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is one of my favorite shows. I've done that more than any other show. So I went down and had a meeting with them, and after we talked for a while, they said, well, is there anything you want to... And I knew what they were thinking. Could a high school theater director really do shows with adults in it? So I said, you thinking that? And they go, yeah, phew, yeah, we are. Anyway, I got to do the show, directed, got it cast, fantastic people. Partially through the show, the person that ran the stage, the theater, came up and said, we have a really big surprise for you. Do you want to know now or when the show opens? I said, when the show opens. I don't need any more pressure than this. So the night of the show, they brought a gentleman up for me to meet, and it was the father of the man that wrote the story, Godspell. Now, his son was actually from Ohio, and he did Godspell as for his master's thesis. And everybody said, oh, that's fantastic, you should take it to New York. So we took it to New York, and they didn't have a lot of money, and everybody that was in it kind of chipped in and all that. Everybody that was in it became millionaires because they shared all the money. Well, he died young, and his father said that they had always talked, and if a reputable theater ever did that back where in Ohio, back in Akron, he wanted to come and see it. So he brought a whole group of people to the show to see it.
Wow.
No pressure. But he saw the show, and if you're familiar with Godspell, if you've been in it, you know that there's a lot in it that you make it your own. And I did that. And afterwards, he took the whole cast out for a party, because he was involved, the father was involved with Godspell when they did it all over the world. And I watched him and talked to him, and he told us how it came about and all that. And later on, when he was alone, I went up and said, okay, I have a question to ask you. And he looked at me, he got a big smile on his face, and he said, you want to know if my son would have liked what you did with it? Yep. So I'd like to know. And he said, he would have loved it. Don't care if he made that up or not. I accept it as the gospel truth. I was happy about it. That was a memorable
moment. Yeah.
And interesting. I did not know that that's where the author came from. That's amazing.
Yeah, in fact, the father of one of the gentlemen I know from Talmadge, where I live, was teaching at the university that his son John Michael went to, and he was the first one to read it as his master's thesis. And I don't know if he gave, I think he may have given him some points about this and that.
Wow.
But that was a surprise. I'm glad I didn't find out early.
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah, I mean that would have been a whole lot of expectation.
Yeah,
of, you know,
trying to make things up that weren't me. I wonder what they would like, and just did it. And I've done that show a number of times. I did it on stages, in churches, in basements of churches. It's just a fantastic show.
So Godspell is the one you've done the most, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How many times have you done it? Would you guess?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. What
is it about Godspell that made it the show that you enjoy doing the most and wanted to continue repeat?
All of you who have been in shows, you know the camaraderie and the feeling you develop with the people that are in the show. One of the comments I've gotten from many people, mostly students, but even some adults, is I never would have known all these people went to this school if we weren't in a play together. We worked from, when I first started, we would go from 7 to 10, 3 nights a week for a couple of months. And then the last week we would go every night. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of time. You spent a lot of time together. You all worked towards something. And when you start out and you get the part and, ooh, I'm so happy and everything's so wonderful. Then you realize you have to memorize the part and you have to work on it and you have to come to rehearsal. And then the show starts getting, oh my God. Oh, the things that were funny aren't funny anymore, and the exciting parts aren't exciting anymore until you get the first laugh from the audience. The first thing happens, and then it's fantastic. Everybody loves each other then. And that happened a lot. And that's part of my enjoyment and appreciation for theaters, is that immediate gratification you get by making friends and enjoying it.
And probably lifelong memories. I know that, I've been involved in a few shows. The shows that I've been involved with are ones that if I hear just even a snippet of music that was played, it takes me straight back to that time, and those memories are lifelong. You got any, probably have that go on.
Oh yeah. I see people come up, these old people. Who were in my shows. Remember? I'm little Pixie. Oh my God, you are. Oh, okay. You've grown.
So Godspell was one you've done the most.
Yeah.
Are there any of those, like, really ones where you're like, I did it one time? It was one and done, I never do it again, or it was super memorable and complex? There's got to be those.
There's one, I was trying to think of, I thought you might ask that question. I was trying to think of which one, there was one. I have repressed it so I cannot even remember the name of it. It's the one where the girls were lying about someone in witchcraft, and then they were going to burn the woman at the stake or something. You know it, it's a famous show.
A musical?
No, it's a regular play.
All right, everybody, throw out your answer, because somebody's out there.
In Salem.
Salem. Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Watch the screen. Anybody else get it?
It'll come to me. I'll think about it. Real quick though, while you're saying that, just to remind people, so Frank has been doing productions for almost 50 years. The Crucible. So thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby.
Abby Farriott.
Yes.
So people are throwing numbers out, guessing how many shows. So just remember the time span is 50 years. How many shows was he involved with over 50 years?
And in summers, and little shows that I do, the ones that I can do for the city now.
Yep. So the Crucible, that sounds like a good one to
not
want to do.
Listening every night to those girls shrieking.
Better than Our Town?
They screamed. I liked Our Town.
You like Our Town?
I liked Our Town.
I
didn't like
Pick Your Wagon? Is that what's called? Pick Your Wagon?
Pick Your Wagon. I never did that one. I did a lot of the classicals, though, and a lot of the older ones.
Did you do 1776?
No.
Clap out there.
Roger is not a fan of 1776.
Well, I was there, but they hadn't made it into a show yet.
What, Hamilton?
I remember him.
Yeah, you remember him?
That's funny.
Throw out some shows for folks that are out there. Throw out a name of the show that you participated, because there's 50 years, and we're not going to tell you how many folks. Fiddler on the Roof, you've done a few times. Sound of Music a few times.
The first time I did Fiddler on the Roof was when it just won a bunch of awards. And I worked with a man named Les Bennett, who was my mentor and a genius. He was the musical director, and he was just one of the most fantastic men I've known in my life. And he taught me so much that I know now, so many things I do. And we were trying to think of what to do. And I was young. He was in World War II. He flew planes in World War II. He had the most fantastic stories. He would go to, you would sit around and talk. He would go to fairs and take people up in planes and flying around a little bit, then land. Good stories. But what should we do? And we said, well, what about Fiddler on the Roof? I don't know. Well, it's out. It's new. It's blah, blah, blah. I said, what the hell? Let's do it. And we did. And it was one of the high time, most popular ones, yeah. And I had a girl, Sherry, if you're watching this, you're the one. She started out as one of Tevia's daughters. And then she became his wife. And then she became the Grand Frumacera, the grandmother. She became all of those as she got older and was in shows for me. And I've had her children in shows. And
oh, wow.
They're children's children.
That happens.
Yes, it does.
That happens. But you've also done some not only what type of phrase you could use to describe that, like aging acting, but intergenerational.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. Tell us about that.
Someone from the central office came to me one day and said, there's an Ohio State grant available to do something with intergenerational programs. Would you like to be on the committee? And they needed an administrator, a teacher, a student, and an old person. At that time, I was the teacher, thank you. So, well, what are we going to do? And everybody's thinking, and I'm thinking what we ought to do. I didn't say it. And they said, well, they're kind of centering on, let's read. We'll get children together that can read to the old people. And I thought, that's nice, but that's not really very exciting. So I popped up and says, again, ignorance gets you into all kinds of, so let's start a theater. And the student that was representing was one of my lead girls for the year. She's a lawyer now. And she said, oh, that sounds good. And then one of the administrators in it had been in one of my shows. So we'll start a theater. Little did we know that this is not an easy task. And we went down to Columbus and we took part in a program for a few days. And we went back and we started a theater, and we just celebrated, a couple of years ago, we celebrated the 25th year of it being a going theater. And that was pretty neat. And we had the old people, the young people and all that, but we tried to avoid the problem that many theaters have is, let's do a show with a lot of kids in it. Why? Because their parents and their grandparents and their friends will come and we'll have a big audience. So if it calls for 10, if we put 30 in, we'll bonanza, a full house. The problem is, if you're gonna, my thoughts as directing and working, particularly with young people, is you want to teach them something about the theater. They don't have to all have had theater class, but you want to teach them. You want them to learn something. And so often these theaters put the kids in it. They put them in a big group, and they take them like pieces of set and put them here and put them there and put them there. And while they're waving at their grandmother and picking their nose, they make a lot of money. I think you have to work with them. You have to work dramatically with them. And they learn. and you have to expect it from them. And when everybody's talking, you have to be
Stern.
I like to think of it, no, assertive. You have to be assertive. But in the end, I tell them, you don't want to be up there and then the curtain call, the only one clapping is your mom. So you want to have an audience really enjoy. So we had to work. So that was fun.
Yeah.
We did that. And that's what I expect when I do shows.
Within that expectation and, you know, separate from the smaller kids, but especially in the high school, like you were talking about the young man with the problems, trying to engage a cast, potentially a large cast, how did you find it most effective to bring that creativity out in these students that many of whom may have never been in a production before, but to get them to engage in the character and commit to the show and enjoy a creativity they may never have considered engaging in?
A good question. As I worked at it for years, we had a reputation of doing good shows, and an expectation that you would do that. And the older kids did a lot of pushing of the younger kids, and I encouraged it. You know, if so-and-so is having problems with their lines or problem with what they're doing, don't talk behind their back. Sit down and help them run their lines. Work with them. And I got a group of kids who did that, and I expected quality. I expected the best. And if you do it, that's fantastic. And they got rewards from it. They were happy. At, you know, the show is over. Yay. I would tell one of the one of the things I'd say a lot was, no one has ever come up to me, and I'd push them at the end of the show and say, Chaff, you pushed us too good. The show was just way too good. I wish you could have slacked off a little bit. We didn't have to be this good. Never. One boy at the end of the show, this was after it'd been in like 4 years of shows, and I said it every year, you know, some of them memorized what I said, came up and said, Chaff, you pushed us too much. That was his last show. but the expectations of it, and then to work with them. We sit down. We don't. So many people. Oh, I don't know if anybody will. A lot of directors think that directing is blocking. Blocking is where you tell people where to stand and where to go. And that's all it is. If we get everybody blocked and go in the right place, then they're happy. Then that's wonderful. That's not it. You have to. There's all these things to become the character. You know, become the Rock and all of that stuff, but to become the character. And we'd talk about it, and we'd work towards that, and we'd expect that they would do that. And sometimes we had to speak assertively to people, and sometimes they cried. Sometimes I enjoyed that. But the product that we ended up with was good. When they built the theater, the new high school, if you're familiar at all with the state of Ohio, they would give money for schools to build, for communities to build new schools, but you had to follow their guidelines. And most of them, they weren't going to put a theater in. They'd put a cafetorium, or I don't know whether it's called a gymatorium or what, but just, you know, it would be a cafeteria during the day, then they'd scrape the food off the walls and you would practice the shows in there at night. And in our community, they built a full-sized professional theater. And they had to get extra money from the community to do that. But by then, I had been there so long, I had most of the people in the community had been in the shows, so they did it. And we got that.
Now,
I'm sure that had part of it, but little to do.
Yeah, and I understand that. Now, is it that theater that is named after you?
Yeah.
Yes.
What? So, I mean, that's something that you probably, you know, wouldn't go back and go, oh, the plays that Chaff Theater. But
well, I had to take out some loans to help finance it.
What did that feel like? I mean, after pouring time and energy into folks and productions and kids and communities, I mean, how did that feel? Being recognized like that?
I didn't expect it. I retired and went about my ways. I kept doing shows for a few years, but then some people that were teaching at the school wanted to take them, so that worked out. And then some of the people I had in shows just started talking in the community, and they sent letters to the Board of Education. They did, and I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It was just fantastic, and I'm so grateful to all those people that were in shows, to the community that supported our shows, to administrators from the Board of Education to principals I've had, not all of them, but most of them, who supported the arts. And they let me do shows, and they let the kids be in them, and it worked out well. I feel really great.
Yeah. Well,
so, I was going to say, this is at Talmadge High School, and it's the Frank Chaff, the fourth,
yes.
The fourth auditorium.
You know, people used to make fun of me for being
the fourth.
Then I said, it's better than like Biff Jones the Nothing.
That's true. Absolutely. They had to go through till they got it right.
Yeah.
So.
My parents would probably differ with you on that one. Wish they had a few more, but.
So we're kind of winding down here. So if you've got a question for Chaff, shoot that out. Also, if you've got the guess, because in a few minutes we're going to take a look, and we're going to send out a CD to the person who guesses the right number of shows that Frank Chaff has been involved in over his years. And as Beth had said earlier, if you've been watching along, that he's been producing shows for 50 plus years. And so
I remember I did the school, and then I did other schools, and then I've been working doing the August show that we have, Circle Lights Festival.
Circle Fest, Talmadge Circle Fest. Yeah.
And then
and you also like walk through cemeteries?
I did a cemetery walk in the town. Our town is very historically minded, and the old cemetery, we did one, and that was fun to do, because we did it over the graves by the tombstones of people who were really there, and some of the really there, partially there. And many of the in spirit, but many of the relatives of the people that were buried there still live in town. And I would, like, one young lady was, she had lost it. She had been very active in the church choir, and she had lost a child. And I had her sitting in a chair by the tombstone of that child, and she was singing a song. And then another man who was buried in the cemetery came up and talked to her like it was the present day. Wow. Like, Maud, we haven't seen you in the church choir lately. Well, yeah, and then carried on. And we did that for a lot of people in the cemeteries. I enjoy doing that kind of thing. I'm doing a Memorial Day program, and Ohio is the longest continuous Memorial Day celebration in Ohio. And it's a very solemn event, and every year. And I've been writing and doing some service of special things for that, and that is just, I love it. Okay, go ahead.
You've written shows. You've put on shows for the very first time that they've ever hit the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like writing or no?
They have, like, Circle Light Festival. They want something that they could do, but we get 15 to 20,000 people come for one Saturday, and they all don't come to the show. But we have the old church, and we get 200-300 people would come there, and they wanted something besides beer and bands and things for children, so we would have this. And nobody wanted to come and sit through a 2 hour, hour and a half show. So about 30, 40 minutes. And I've done everything from the history of Talmadge, things from that to
Alice in Wonderland.
Things I make up.
Mm-hmm.
We have questions out there as
Let's see.
even some comments about some shows and productions folks have been in.
Mindy did say she can't imagine you making anyone cry.
Can't imagine.
Some sarcasm runs in our family. So Sheena Zadai listed off that she was in Oliver, Alice in Wonderland, The Hobbit, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Let's see.
Have you ever flown people in your shows, lift them off the ground and...
Oh, I did once.
Once?
Is that what happened? That it was only
tragic.
once.
It was a new theater, and you have to have. They have people come in. That's companies that did the rigging and all that. I didn't know that. So I put this girl. I put some ropes around her, and we hoisted her up. And this was Once Upon a Mattress, and I think it was some kind of goose or bird would sing.
Oh, I was like, why would you need to hoist someone during Once Upon a Mattress?
Yeah,
but okay.
She was the bird, and I hoisted her up there, and then she had to hang there for a while till her scene came, till we could let her down. It was sad.
It didn't go well.
I've never hoisted anybody since.
That was it, huh?
I did Peter Pan once, and the fathers were going to find a way to fly Peter Pan up in the, and this was in an old, it wasn't going to work, but they worked on it for a long time, and it didn't work. What I finally did is had Peter Pan, we had a window in the set, and we had a bunch of soft things behind it, and we had him just jump out the window. Worked most of the time.
How about other special effects? Have you had some big appliance work? And we have a lot of special effects folks that tune in.
I did the one with the big plant.
Little Shop of
Little
Horrors.
Shop of Horrors. And one time I did it, and I found somebody, I got on, I don't know how I even found out, but there was a place in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, that had a plant. They would let me borrow it. One of the kids' parents just happened to be going through that town, so he picked the plant up on his way through. On his way back from business, he brought it to us, and they took it back, and it worked wonderfully. And then they wanted money for it, and I said, "Okay, give me an invoice, because schools don't pay things." I found out, just notes, and they would never send me an invoice, so I never paid for it.
Fair enough.
That's how it works.
But I had a fellow that could build. He could have built sets professionally in New York. He was absolutely fantastic. And I did Little Shop of Horrors again, and
Love
he
that show.
did it. He had the one building. He says, "Do you see up there?" And there were spots on the side of the building. I said, "Yeah." He says, "It's pigeon poop." Every little detail he worked out.
Wow.
He's a genius.
Wow, that's cool.
Any of your students go on to, or any of your actors that you've cast over the past, go on to acting as a profession or directing as a profession, or end up...
Yes, I had one girl that went to New York, and she ended up with some of the summer shows that did the circuit out of New York and around through the United States. And another girl who was worked for Disney in Los Angeles, and she worked on boats, and she was Jasmine, I think, for Disney, and a number of shows like that. I've had some that have done that. Some have worked on sets and lighting and that kind of stuff.
Did you have any go into directing and become directors? No. You scared them enough they didn't think they could.
I don't know. Rumor has it.
All right, let's take the last round of questions, and then I've got a couple more things to ask, and then we're gonna draw the we're gonna figure out what the number of shows that you've been involved in?
You may have already answered, sort of. So Jessica says, what was the oddest play or show that you were involved with, whether it was the play itself or the cast or just circumstances? Like, what's a standout, just odd experience or show?
Well, I had one show, a guy named Kelly wrote shows for high school, his regular shows, and they were kind of simple, appealing to high school kids. And they were in a room in a building where they did witchcraft and all kinds of stuff like that. And this one guy was a mad scientist, and he had a vial with olives in it. And there were supposed to be eyeballs and these kinds of things. And he was fantastic actor, fantastic. And he's going crazy in there. He put the vial down, and it broke, and the olive rolled out. He goes, ah! And he ate it. It was the hit. Every night we had to do that again. And we had one show, it was Godspell, where you're on stage for the whole show. And during the show, one kid ran off stage. And I thought, what's going on? And I ran after him. But everybody on stage, we worked hard, and they could pick stuff up, and they were picking it up and all that. And I went, he had to go to the bathroom. And he couldn't wait. I went in and said, what the? Okay, hurry, finish.
Right back out, huh?
Yeah, he went back out and
Finished it out.
Other than the Crucible as the play, is there a musical that you, other than 1776, that you were just like, no, Cats or just something that you're just like, ugh?
High School Musical was the best attended show I ever did. We were the first one in this area to do. I was on what they called a fast track from New York, and they would let me know as soon as shows were going to become available, and as soon as that one became available, I picked it up, and I just hit it right. Other people must have missed it, and we did that one, and we added shows to it. We filled the auditorium. I had people sitting in chairs in the back, people sitting up and down the aisles, people sitting on the floor in front. This is when we did our shows in what we call a hex room. It was semi in the round, and the chairs went right down, and the stage was right there. We felt that was when the best. We usually, almost always, we filled the house on it, whether it was a new theater or others.
Not bad.
But again, it's because I had such a cadre of talented young people that took it seriously and wanted to do it well.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. What, as Beth is kind of scrolling through, what is advice that you would give to folks, regardless of age, who are looking to improve or try out or participate somewhere in theater, community, high school, wherever?
There are little theaters all over. In fact, I think sometimes we almost have too many of them, because I have trouble getting actors. I'm going to do the August show now, and I'm trying to get people that would like to be in it. It's about a 35-40 minute show. It's not hard. We don't have a lot of rehearsals, but still, well, I'm doing this show and I can come 2 days a week to practice, and I won't do that. But just go get in a show, any place. They're all over. Look in the paper, ask people.
How do you combat stage fright in adults, kids, when they're just...
I think stage fright exists mostly in the minds of people who haven't been on stage. If you have worked for 2 months, for a month, 3-4 nights a week to do a show, when you're up on that stage, you're thinking of doing it well, of the things you've learned in it, not, oh my God, what am I going to do? People are going to hear me. other than missing a line, and you practice. And we talk about how do you pick up another person's line. What do you do if they say, you don't go, oh my God. You say, you know, if you're going to ask me, if I'm going to ask you if you want to go out for dinner and I forget the line and I give you that look like, what am I supposed to say? You say, did you want to go out with dinner with me? Yeah, you want to go out? There's ways you can pick them up. We practice that too. I've had 2 instances where people forgot big lines. One was a boy was the mock turtle, and some show I can't remember now, and he had a song, and he started it, and it left him, and my accompanist kept on playing, so he just went through la da 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 and hummed and danced and went through it, and nobody knew. You know, why did that song have any words? They didn't know. I had one boy who's now a policeman in Talmadge, who came down, said his lines, and he had more lines to do, but he forgot them. So he said, well, I've got to be going now, turned around and walked off. And we were able to carry, it was kind of the end of the show, the scene, so we were able to carry it off, but the next scene came on, and it was out of sequence. So I ran backstage, we got together, we made up a quick filler scene for it, and sent him back out, and he did it. And I've had 2 of his daughters in a show I did at Halloween.
Oh, wow.
It's neat.
Very
It's
cool.
for you, Nate.
So we're going to, is there anything else out there, Beth, as I grab this? So we're going to reveal the number of shows that Chaff has been involved with.
I made this up.
You made this up.
I don't know. I'm just probably.
This is a
But
rough
you're probably close here. So the reason why we're giving away Midnight Syndicates because we have them. These are our friends who do this. It's kind of a soundscapes, but the folks, Ed Douglas is playing out at Vinyl Arcade, and I'm going this weekend, so that's why this came out here. But the number of shows, does everybody have their guesses in?
I think so. I think
So you
the
had
winner
one-
has probably heard this number before.
Yeah. So the number of shows is 358. 300.
Somebody got that?
Didn't get that exactly, but Kelly initially guessed something in the 600s, and I was like, whoa, dude. But then she said 345. So
345.
Kelly Chaff, you win the Midnight Syndicate CD.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Did we have anybody else who was in the 300s? That's a lot of shows.
That's a lot of
Frank.
shows,
Lots of
Frank.
shows.
That's a lot of shows.
That's a lot of kids to
Yeah.
be, and adults and parents to be negotiating. Let's see. We had 161, 160, 201, 132.
Well, Frank, with, I mean, just the amount of shows, 358-ish, and the number of years and programs of people you've touched, I think makes you an icon, and you're deserving of having a theater named after you. We're glad you joined us tonight. But tell us about 2020, because I don't think that you're quite done here. What does 2020 look like, hold? What are your thoughts for this year and the next few years for you?
Well, I'm looking for people now, if you want to prepare your future and your children right, to be in our August show. Roger can put it up someplace or something you could contact on the computer. And that, I'm doing that. I'm doing the Memorial Day because that's important to me. The August show, I need people for that, to do that.
And that's at the Talmadge Circle Fest?
Yes. And then I didn't do 2 Christmas shows that I usually do. I didn't do them this past Christmas. I may do next year. I don't know. But then after that, I'm just looking around. I've done shows out in Marlington and different places. I like to do the things that, like the Memorial Day, where we can create it. I like to do that.
And is that also in Talmadge?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that was in Akron or Talmadge. Okay.
So as you know, Frank, excuse me, Frank Chaff, Chaff, is on Facebook. And folks, if you're interested, comment to this interview, because Frank will see that. You could always instant message him or me too if you have a question or are interested in perhaps participating in one of your shows this year.
Yeah, and if any of you are just came on because you heard I was going to be on this is a neat thing to become a part of. Roger has some of the most interesting people in all areas, whether it's I don't even know the people. I've watched some of them, and they're fantastic. It's a good thing to do. You love it if you're artistic. If you're just like kind of bumps and log, then look up a cooking show.
Tuesday at 7, TUES, the S sign at 7, is a Facebook group. We put it together. We're just trying to build a community of creatives. We have a lot of folks from Ohio, but there's folks from different countries and different states participate as well. If you want to join the Tuesday at 7 Facebook group, just ask to join. Everybody's approved. If you go out to Facebook and you just put up in the find box, the dialogue box, TUES at 7, you can go and check out every episode that we've had, and I don't know how many there are out there, 30 maybe ish, maybe more. And we also upload them onto YouTube. So for those folks that want to catch it on YouTube, sometimes that's an easier way of checking it out. What we'll do is we'll upload this to YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to share it to friends or check it out on YouTube, usually it's about within a week that we go ahead and upload it to YouTube. Thank you, folks, for joining us this Tuesday at 7. Thank you, Frank, for sharing some of your memories. And there's going to be chatter about this for weeks and probably years to come. So,
well, thank you for letting me be a part of this. You probably can tell I'm a little reluctant to talk about the stage and theater. That I love it. I love it. It's been a way of life with me, and it's brought me a lot of happiness, a lot of work, a lot of happiness. So thank you for letting me be part of it.
Yeah. And folks, thank you for spending the week with us. Next week, Tuesday at 7, I'm not going to announce who's going to be there, but it's going to be as soon as you think we're going to zig, then next week we're going to zag. The next 3, 4, 5 weeks, we're already booked up through the end of March, and we've got some phenomenal stuff going. And April, May is going to be incredible as well. So stick with us. For those who want to join, just let us know, and have a great week.